God has a plan for you. This statement, so often uttered with good intentions, is incredibly harmful. It's the ultimate cop-out, a way to dismiss pain and suffering with a vague platitude. We've all heard it. Maybe someone said it to you after a job loss, a breakup, or even a death in the family. But what if this seemingly comforting phrase is actually a way to avoid dealing with difficult emotions and complex realities? We need to talk about why this phrase is not just unhelpful. It's a trap. It's a way to silence dissent, justify injustice, and keep people stuck in cycles of pain and oppression. This isn't about attacking anyone's faith. It's about recognizing that this phrase, while often well-intentioned, is ultimately damaging. It's time to retire it for good. Let's be honest, the phrase "God has a plan for you" is often used as a band-aid on a gaping wound. It's easier to offer this empty platitude than to sit with someone in their pain, acknowledge their suffering, and offer genuine support. But this kind of comfort comes at a steep price. It suggests that whatever awful thing is happening is part of some grand, unknowable plan, rendering you powerless and insignificant. It's a recipe for passivity, apathy, and a whole lot of unaddressed trauma. This statement is particularly insidious because it's often directed at people when they are at their most vulnerable, reeling from loss, questioning their purpose, desperate for answers. And instead of real support, they're handed this pre-packaged one-size-fits-all answer that neatly explains away their pain but offers no real solutions. Let's unpack why this phrase is so dangerous, why people keep saying it, and most importantly, what to say instead. Because you deserve better than empty platitudes. You deserve agency, empowerment, and the truth. Let's call this phrase what it is: fatalism disguised as comfort. It's the belief that we're all just pawns in some cosmic game with no real control over our own lives. And that's not just depressing, it's dangerous. When we accept that God has a plan, we surrender our agency. We stop fighting for what we want, for what we deserve. Why bother trying to change things if it's all preordained? This kind of thinking breeds apathy and complacency. It allows us to turn a blind eye to injustice, both in our own lives and in the world around us. After all, if it's all part of the plan, who are we to question it? This fatalistic outlook keeps us stuck. It keeps us small. It keeps us from reaching our full potential. And that's not what any loving deity would want for us, is it? Perhaps the most insidious aspect of the "God has a plan" trope is how it trivializes suffering. It reduces real pain, real trauma, to mere plot points in some grand cosmic narrative. Imagine telling someone who just lost their child that it's all part of God's plan. Imagine telling a refugee fleeing war and persecution that their suffering has some higher purpose. It's not comforting, it's callous. Suffering is not a test. It's not a lesson. It's not part of some divine game of chess. It's real. It's raw. And it deserves to be acknowledged as such. To suggest that someone's pain is part of some preordained plan is to diminish their experience and invalidate their feelings. It's a way of saying your pain doesn't really matter because it's all part of something bigger. And that's a terrible message to send to anyone, especially those who are hurting. Think about it this way. If your life is a movie, would you rather be the star who writes their own script or a background extra blindly following a director's cues? The "God has a plan" mentality casts us all as extras in the grand play of life. We're not active participants, we're just along for the ride. But here's the thing. We are not characters in someone else's story. We are the authors of our own lives. The belief that our lives are predetermined robs us of our power to choose, to grow, to create. It tells us that our decisions don't really matter, that our actions are preordained. And honestly, that's not just a recipe for a boring life, it's a recipe for a life half-lived. We need to ditch this outdated script and start writing our own stories. Stories filled with purpose, passion, and the freedom to make our own choices, even if those choices lead to mistakes and detours. Because, that's how we learn, that's how we evolve, and that's how we truly live. Here's where this God's plan business gets really dangerous. It's used to justify inaction in the face of injustice. Got a problem with poverty, systemic racism, climate change? Don't worry, it's all part of a divine plan. This line of thinking is not only lazy, it's downright harmful. It allows us to turn away from suffering, to ignore inequality, to accept the unacceptable. After all, who are we to question God's plan, right? But here's the thing. Fighting for a better world isn't defying some divine plan. It's fulfilling our human potential. It's about standing up for what's right, demanding justice, and refusing to accept suffering as inevitable. So the next time someone tells you to accept injustice because God has a plan, Remind them that we are not passive observers in this life. We have a responsibility to fight for a better world, for ourselves and for future generations. Believing that everything happens for a reason doesn't make it true. In fact, clinging to this belief can actually prevent us from learning from our mistakes and making better choices in the future. Let's say you make a bad investment because, hey, God's plan, right? Instead of analyzing what went wrong and learning from the experience, you shrug it off as part of some divine design. Guess what? You're likely to repeat that mistake. Denying reality doesn't make it go away. It just makes us ill-equipped to deal with it. It's like walking through life with blinders on, oblivious to the consequences of our actions and the opportunities for growth and change. We need to engage with reality, not shy away from it. We need to take responsibility for our choices, learn from our mistakes, and adapt to the ever-changing world around us. That's how we grow, that's how we evolve, and that's how we create a better future. And let's not forget the emotional toll of this toxic statement. Imagine going through a devastating loss, only to be told that it was all part of God's plan, as if your grief is somehow misplaced, your pain somehow insignificant. This kind of thinking can lead to feelings of guilt and shame. Why am I not more accepting of this tragedy? Why can't I see the bigger picture? Am I just not spiritual enough? This isn't spiritual guidance, it's emotional manipulation. It's a way of silencing people's pain, invalidating their experiences, and preventing them from processing their grief in a healthy way. We need to stop using God's plan as a shield to protect ourselves from the messiness of human emotion. We need to show up for each other, offer genuine support, and allow space for grief, anger, and all the other messy emotions that come with being human. Let's be real. We all want answers. Life is messy, unpredictable, and often downright painful. So when we're faced with suffering, it's tempting to reach for a simple explanation, a cosmic reason that makes sense of the chaos. Enter God has a plan. It's the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card for existential angst. It allows us to bypass the hard questions, the messy emotions, and the uncomfortable truths about life and death. But here's the catch: real life doesn't come with a pre-written script or a divine guarantee. Clinging to easy answers prevents us from grappling with the complexities of the human experience, from wrestling with doubt, and ultimately, from growing. It's time to embrace the unknown, to sit with discomfort, and to find meaning and purpose in the midst of life's beautiful, messy chaos. Because that's where the real growth happens. Let's face it, uncertainty is terrifying. Not knowing what the future holds, not having all the answers, it's enough to send anyone spiraling. And that's precisely why the God has a plan narrative is so appealing. It offers a false sense of security in a world that often feels random and chaotic. It's the warm blanket we cling to when the world feels cold and unpredictable. But here's the thing. That blanket is woven from illusion and denial. It might feel comforting in the moment, but it ultimately keeps us trapped in a cycle of fear and dependency. True freedom comes from embracing uncertainty, from accepting that we don't have all the answers, and from finding the courage to navigate the unknown with open hearts and open minds. We live in a culture obsessed with positivity. Don't get me wrong, a healthy dose of optimism can be a beautiful thing, but when it comes to dealing with pain and suffering, sometimes a plate of cookies just isn't enough. Sometimes what people need is a shoulder to cry on, not a sugar-coated platitude. The God has a plan line is often deployed as a weapon of toxic positivity. It's a way of dismissing someone's pain, telling them to buck up, look on the bright side, and trust that everything happens for a reason. But here's the problem. Toxic positivity denies the validity of negative emotions. It tells us that feeling sad, angry, or grieving is somehow wrong or unproductive. And that's not only unhelpful, it's harmful. We need to normalize the full spectrum of human emotion, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because only when we acknowledge and process our pain can we truly begin to heal and move forward. Here's the real kicker about this: God has a plan nonsense. It's a recipe for blind obedience. Think about it. If you believe that everything is preordained, why question authority? Why challenge the status quo? After all, it's all part of the plan, right? This kind of thinking is dangerous because it allows those in power to maintain control. It keeps people complacent, unquestioning, and obedient. And that's not a coincidence. Throughout history, this phrase has been used to justify everything from slavery to war to economic inequality. Don't fall for it. Question everything. Challenge authority. Demand better. Because blind obedience has never led to progress. It's time to wake up, think for ourselves, and create a world that works for everyone, not just those at the top. One of the most insidious side effects of the God has a plan mentality is that it discourages critical thinking. Why bother questioning anything if the answers are already predetermined? Why bother seeking knowledge, exploring different perspectives, or challenging your own beliefs? This kind of intellectual laziness is not only detrimental to personal growth, it's dangerous for society as a whole. When we stop questioning, we stop learning. We become susceptible to manipulation, propaganda, and frankly, really bad ideas. We need to cultivate a culture of curiosity, of skepticism, of intellectual rigor. We need to encourage people to think for themselves, to question everything, and to never stop learning. Because a society that values blind faith over critical thinking is a society destined for stagnation and decline. Let's not beat around the bush. The God has a plan trope has been used for centuries to control women. Can't get pregnant? God's plan. Stuck in an abusive marriage? God's plan. Denied basic rights and opportunities? You guessed it, God's plan. This kind of thinking keeps women trapped in cycles of oppression and inequality. It tells them that their suffering is divinely ordained, that their voices don't matter, and that their only option is to shut up and submit. We need to dismantle this harmful narrative. Women are not pawns in some cosmic game. They are powerful, capable individuals with the right to make their own choices, control their own bodies, and create their own destinies. Honestly, it's time to stop using religion as a weapon to silence and control women. It's time to embrace equality, empower women, and create a world where everyone has the opportunity to thrive, regardless of gender. Enough with the God has a plan fairy tales. It's time to take back control of the narrative. Your life isn't some pre-written script handed down from on high. It's a blank page waiting for you to fill it. You are the author of your own story. You decide what to write, what to erase, and what new adventures to explore. You have the power to choose your own path, even if it means veering off the well-worn road and forging your own trail. Sure, there will be plot twists you don't see coming. There will be challenges, setbacks, and moments of doubt, but that's all part of the beauty of it, because it's in those messy, unpredictable moments that we discover our strength, our resilience, and our capacity for growth. Remember that chessboard we talked about earlier? The one where you're just a pawn in God's game? Yeah, toss that board out the window. In the game of life, you're not a pawn, you're a player. You have agency, you have choices, and you have the power to shape the game itself. Stop waiting for permission or divine intervention. You don't need a higher power to tell you what your purpose is or how to live your life. You have everything you need within you to create a life filled with meaning, purpose, and joy. This is your wake-up call. Stop playing small, step into your power, and start living life on your own terms. Meaning isn't something you find, it's something you create. It's not a prize at the end of some divine scavenger hunt. It's woven into the fabric of your everyday life. It's about finding joy in the little things. It's about connecting with others, pursuing your passions, and making a difference in the world. It's about embracing your unique gifts and talents and using them to create something beautiful and meaningful. You don't need a divine blueprint to live a fulfilling life. You just need to show up, be present, and embrace the journey. So, the next time someone hits you with the tired old God has a plan for you line, remember this. You are not a character in someone else's story. You are the author of your own life. You get to decide what your purpose is, what mountains you want to climb, and what legacy you want to leave behind. Ditch the divine blueprints and pre-written scripts. Embrace the uncertainty, the messiness, and the sheer, exhilarating freedom of writing your own story. Make it a story filled with passion, purpose, and the unwavering belief that you are in control of your own destiny, your life, your rules. Now go make it epic. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Freethinker's Journey.